In about an hour, Senate Republicans will finally reveal their health care bill. So let's bring in the new chairman of the House Oversight Committee, Republican Trey Gowdy of South Carolina, to talk about that and so much more. Good morning, Congressman.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm doing well. Are you comfortable with how this whole Senate side thing has gone down, where it was behind closed doors and lots of Democratic senators say they don't know what's in this bill?
I don't know enough about the Senate process to tell you whether I'm comfortable with it or not.
You've not heard on Capitol Hill that they were doing it behind closed doors secretly?
No, I've read it, and I don't doubt it. I try really hard not to give the Senate advice. They're good to not give the House advice. We've got our own issues and problems on the House side, so my energy should be spent sorting out our problems and not giving advice to the Senate on theirs.
Fair enough. Are you comfortable if they overhaul the House health care bill, or did you think that there was a lot of room for improvement with that one?
I do think there was room for improvement, and I think health care is, you know, it's interesting, Allison, in the Declaration of Independence it says the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Access to health care is fundamental to all three of those. It impacts every single one of us, and I am open to anyone's ideas that makes it better, and I wish we were in a less political environment where we could take on major challenges like health care and like entitlements. That's not the environment you and I find ourselves in right now, but every one of us needs access to health care and access to health insurance, and if someone has a good idea, I'm all ears. All
right, well, let's see what they announce this afternoon. Okay, so let's talk about something that you are intimately connected with, and that, of course, is House oversight as well as intel and the ongoing Russia investigations. As you know, Congressman Elijah Cummings, the top Dem on your committee, House Oversight, has sent a letter to the Chief of Staff of the White House, Reince Priebus, in which he writes that there are credible allegations that employees may be unfit to continued access to classified information, and that, therefore, security clearances are supposed to be suspended. He's talking about the president's top advisor and son-in-law, Jared Kushner. Do you think that Jared Kushner's security clearance should be suspended?
Allison, I am interested in working with anyone who wants to safeguard classified information. The past 5 months have been really, really difficult for those of us who want to safeguard classified information. It's splashed on almost every website and almost every major newspaper. So I welcome anyone's help who wants to safeguard classified information and a more robust process for the granting of security clearances. But when I read Mr. Cummings' letter, it should have been directed to Robert Mueller. It wasn't directed to me. Those are allegations of crime. If you have completed a security application and you omitted material information or misrepresented material information, that's a crime. And I promised Bob Mueller Tuesday night that I was not going to do anything wittingly or unwittingly that interfered with his probe. That used to be what I do for a living. I'm very sensitive to staying out of his lane. If Elijah wants to make accusations of a crime, that's up to him, but I'm going to let Bob Mueller figure it out.
Fair enough, but from what you've heard on House Intel, do you think it rises to a level of a crime?
You know what, Allison, my mind is not wired that way. I can't take 20% of the information and then draw a conclusion. We're meeting with Dan Coates this morning. So I'm going to add to my body of information, my body of evidence this morning. It's when you interview the last witness that you can draw a conclusion. You can't do it after you interview the first one. Let's hear it all. But keep in mind, Congress doesn't grant security clearances. That's an executive branch function. You did not hear me call for Secretary Clinton's security clearance to be suspended, or Cheryl Mills or Uma Abedin. That's an executive branch function. And again, the legislative branch has enough issues with itself. We don't need to do the other two branches' jobs.
And when you meet with DNI Dan Coates, what if he shares with you what he has apparently shared with other investigators, as has Admiral Rogers, that, again, the president suggested to them that they publicly state that they had seen no collusion between Russia and Team Trump? Do you think that that is appropriate for a president to suggest to those intel heads?
I don't know all the facts, Allison, so one thing I'm going to ask Mr. Coates is not only what was said, but what did he hear? How did he take it? What was the tone? What was the context? We have special counsel that is looking at all matters criminal and quasi-criminal. House Intel does have a role to play, and this would be within our jurisdiction. But again, there's Coates, there's Mike Rogers, there's Mike Pompeo. There are lots of witnesses to talk to, and I'm just really reluctant. I wouldn't do it for you, and I'm not going to do it for President Trump. I'm not going to draw conclusions until the end of the investigation. I just don't think it's fair to the process.
I understand, but only because we have this exclusive reporting today on CNN do I want to press you on it, because generally speaking, if the executive were trying to give suggestions to people involved in an investigation that your committee on oversight or intel were involved in, would you find that to be appropriate?
Well, you made two assumptions. Number one, that the reporting is accurate. Number two, that that was suggested. And I guess what I'm saying is I think in investigations, look, I think Dana does great work. But her job is different from an investigator's job. Her job is to report. Our job is to figure out what really happened, the context in which it happened. At the end of an investigation, if someone has done nothing wrong, it's not inappropriate to ask the district attorney or someone else to say, hey, since you had me under a cloud, do you mind telling people I'm not under a cloud anymore? That's probably not appropriate to do on the front end of an investigation, because I don't think anyone would be able to answer that question fully. So I need all the context. I need to hear from everyone who is part of that conversation to see if their testimonies match up, if there's corroboration, if there's contradiction. That's the way you do serious investigations. And I know we're not used to it in Congress. But we do political investigations. But this is really serious, and there's a reason I think your viewers are going to wind up trusting Bob Mueller more than they do Congress, and that's because the executive branch runs serious investigations, and we try to do it in 5-minute increments with anonymous sources.
Congressman Trey Gowdy, we appreciate your candor on this as well as all of the topics. Thanks so much for being here.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Chris.